Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Review Crew on the Record Players podcast. Today, we're going to be looking at Sometimes I Might Be Introvert, the latest album from Little Simz. If you have a comment about the album yourself, if you agree or disagree with anything we're saying, drop us a comment down below. If you like what we're doing in the videos, give us a like and a subscription. Otherwise, give us a thumbs down and we'll come and fight you in the comments. Without any more, let's get into it. So, there's a lot of different material on this album, and something that I wasn't necessarily expecting from Little Simz. I've been a fan of Little Simz for a while now. I've listened to a fair amount of her releases. I wouldn't say I'm a religious follower, but I'm always interested when I hear that something new's coming out. So what's your kind of backgrounds listening to Little Simz? I'll go to you first, Hadi.
So I wasn't really aware of her as an artist till her previous album, Grey Area, and I had that recommended to me, and I thought it was sick. It was really kind of tight, concise album, quite stripped down production-wise, but yeah, she's a great rapper, and that definitely turned me on to her. This album, it was different in a lot of ways. As opposed to it being a kind of stripped down, short, concise bit of work, this is spread and huge on the production level. So I was quite surprised with the shift she did musically on this.
Yeah, there's a lot to break down beats wise with it as well. What about you, Dennis?
Yeah, I kind of same with Hattie, came into Lil Simz through Grey Area, play that to death. The single off it, Offense, just sick, just so sick. And over the years, just got to love more and more of the tracks on there, and tried to follow. I think she released another EP, a follow-up EP after that as well. My initial thoughts of this album is sort of similar to Hattie, is that Grey Area was like a tight 10-track focused project, whereas this seems to be more of her really sort of expressing herself. It's more of an album, more of her putting as many different ideas as she can out there.
It's trying to be like epic, conceptual, especially with like the interludes that have the kind of, almost like ties each track together.
Yeah. With who was it that you guys were talking about who's done some of the production for this?
Inflow,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's the primary producer on.
No, but you can tell those tracks with the kind of huge orchestration have been kind of peppered in enough to make it a cohesive like run through sound of the album.
Yeah.
For me, I'm more familiar with the stuff like you're saying, like the kind of stripped back, chilled out hip hop vibe, which is very very British. And for a long time, I've thought like Little Simz has been a really good example of what English artists can do with that heavy hip hop influence, and like giving it a very London sound and having it be very referential, but also very British and kind of unique because of that sense. To you guys, I got little bits when I was listening to this where I was thinking this wouldn't necessarily have to have been a British artist making this. Removing lyrics from it for a second, because a lot of what she talks about is still very rooted in that kind of, very relatable for people living in England. But did you guys get that same kind of like, I don't know, like I feel quite almost like a bit like national pride about listening to a great British artist. Did you guys get that similar feeling with this album or not?
You mean like you could put like a fit an American artist or someone from kind of anywhere really onto this production and it would work in any context? Yeah, 100%. I think the production's next level. Like even you I'll have to chastise you because you referred to it as like the beats. I don't even think you can call most of these beats. They're like full on compositions that just the depth to the instrumentation with all the orchestras and everything. It's next level.
Do you find beats a derogatory term?
Someone triggered.
No,
do you think that's a lower quality thing?
I just think it's the wrong terminology for what I was hearing on this album because
we should point out.
I'd agree for some of the tracks. Yeah, for stuff like especially the things happening under the interludes where it's literally or the beginning to Introvert where it's literally just an orchestral piece of music.
Yeah.
But even if you have a full orchestra playing and then you stick some like underneath it, it's a beat at that point. Once it's got that drum beat, once it's got the driving rhythm, for me, I'd classify that as a beat. But I wouldn't ever say that as a. To me, that's not bringing it down to a lower thing.
No,
do you know what I mean?
I'm not going to die on a hill over the terminology. I guess it's just like the inflow. He to me comes off of this album as like a perfect example of like someone I would consider a producer.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact, it was like a 1-to-1 pairing with an artist and one producer. But if you say, oh, he's a beat maker, nah, like the level that he went to kind of craft the instrumentation that she's going over is like so commendable.
Yeah, we should give this guy his props. Like Inflow is part of Salt, which is like a collective that in 2020 they released the double album Untitled Rise and Untitled Black Is. I would call those like compositions. I mean, sure, they're projects involving multiple artists, and I think Salt itself, they like their privacy, so they don't advertise exactly who they are. But I think, well, we should also point out.
I think another the feature on track 2, Cleo Soul. I think she's part of Salt, supposed to be. Cleo Soul's sick, by the way.
Absolutely.
If you guys haven't heard her solo stuff, it is sick.
That was one of the things that hit me most on first listen to the album. That was a fantastic. That was perfect choice of feature for that track.
Mm-hmm. Inflow. I think she was on the Grey Area as well on the track. It was a single, but anyway, sorry, I'm digressing. She's just a sick artist.
Inflow produced Grey Area as well, and
that's mad. That's mad because of how different it sounds.
Yeah, I think you what you're hearing is like his development as a producer, which is why I think, Jack, you should give him props as a bona fide producer I'm
not slating him. I'm not saying anything negative about it. I'm just saying I'm not drawing a line between using the term beat or calling someone a composer. I think if you are a beat maker, you are a composer. That was all I was saying, was like just clarifying the language of like there's nothing split if there is one.
There's nothing wrong with people that I was going to say. There's nothing wrong with producers that are just like beat makers. I guess it's just acknowledging like the work that was done on this is something that I don't hear often. And on the conversation we were having off stream before this about like high art, at least on the production space, this is a perfect example of that.
Anyway. I feel like we could have our own discussion off air about that, because that sounds like it's quite an interesting and long-winded topic for us to get into. But we hear lots of different influences on here. So we've got all the orchestral stuff we've gone through. We've got the chilled beats and stuff that we're kind of used to. We've also got more kind of modern stuff. So on tracks like I Love You, I Hate You, Speed, on a few of the other tracks, like Protect My Energy a little bit, we get a bit more of the kind of electronic sound versus the kind of soulful sound on some other tracks. Which one of those do you think is kind of the stronger showing for Little Simz?
Well, so I'll jump in on that. So I found very little that I disliked with this album. A matter of fact, I don't think there was a song, I'm excluding the interludes, but I don't think there was a song that I disliked. But if I had to draw on a weak point, I did find the tracks that were kind of more stripped back and like modern sounding. So Speed, Rolling Stone were two examples. Didn't feel like they 100% fitted. Like I enjoyed listening to them on their own, and they felt they were decent tracks. But when you compare that to like the epicness of like tracks like Introvert or Standing Ovation that are so orchestral heavy, and they've got like tempo changes, everything drops out and builds back in. I'm kind of like, when she does go back to those tracks that, something like Speed could have fit on Grey Area, but on this album I was like, does this work? Did this need to be included? And again, they're not bad tracks, but it does have an odd contrast with how layered some of the other ones are, or the majority of the album is.
Yeah.
So that was, that was something that was a little sticking point to me. But I don't dislike the tracks. I wasn't sure about their inclusion.
Dennis, what about you?
I thought Rolling Stone was one of the grimiest tracks on there. I thought Rolling Stone was probably the most modern. And to go back to what you asked earlier, Jack, like did this make you feel some kind of like national pride? Absolutely, because like grime is huge right now. Grime is huge. It's worldwide, but UK hip hop, like I find that it's not as represented. Whereas like there are some great UK hip hop artists out there. Kano, Dizzy Rascal, Ocean Wisdom. There's some Dave. There's some great like UK hip, and this is almost like golden age of hip hop sound. Like, I thought that one of the most like dominant sort of feelings I got from this was this sounded like golden age of hip hop. This sounded like Big Daddy Kane, like Wu-Tang back in the days.
What you mean in sound, or you mean as in like a cultural change or development?
In sound, it didn't sound very modern. I didn't get like drill beats. It didn't. It sounded like this sounded like an album that was made 15 years ago rather than today.
Yeah, I think that's one of its strongest elements as well, is that kind of that like throwback sound kind of it lends a lot of authenticity to it as a kind of, like I say, like as something that's still developing, or not as I don't want to say respected, but not as like prolific as she could have easily come out with something that's like, trilly and sounds like trap beats and has like stuff like that, and it would have given a much more modern sound, and it would have immediately felt like it's at home in the space that it is right now. But I think the choices that they've made with making it a more reminiscent sounding album will help give it longevity, rather than it just being a 100%. Flash in the pan of modern sound.
100%. And one thing I think to acknowledge is like how versatile I think she is as an MC, because you do have the variety of sounds. You have the kind of orchestral tracks, but you do have the synthy tracks, and I feel like her kind of flow delivery switches up to meet each of them.
Yeah, I think a good example of that is Misunderstood, because Misunderstood is a track that's the beat underneath is so different. Like it doesn't even have a snare. It's just a kick and like hi-hat, and that sort of, to me, it creates this sort of like tension. It feels like it needs to be resolved. Like you're constantly waiting for that snare to come in on that downbeat, but it just never comes.
You're kind of describing my Donda experience as well, but that was in a negative way.
Yeah, except this isn't 24 tracks of that. This is just the one. But that feeling lends itself to what she's talking about as well. She's talking about being misunderstood. She's talking about that tension that comes from being misunderstood, and she's the lyrical content has molded itself to the beat. But I think that works. Like one of the reasons why that works so well is because her and Inflow have been working together for such a long time. It's almost like a Killer Mike and LP type situation.
No, 100%. And there's lots of, I guess, just to jump off on that, there is lots of kind of diverse topics explored on this album, just because of you briefly touching on that, which I think is good. Like, you got like the personal tracks, like I Love You, I Hate You, talking about her relationship with her dad. But then there's other tracks, the kind of more stripped back ones where she's just like bragging, talking her shit.
Yeah, and the stuff that kind of pulled me back in when I was just like listening casually, just out and about, rather than like proper note taking, was something that I always come back to when we listen to rap, which is having a story in your raps. Like it's fine to have a track which is saying how good you are, but tell me a story of how good you are. Tell me a story about a time that you were sick, or like how you progressed from being not as good to how good you are now. Like give me some development in your story, and that's something that she nails on a couple of tracks here. And obviously, like from the title, it's a very like introvert, very inward looking album, and she's telling her stories.
There was I wonder if you guys will remember the name of it because I can't remember which one, but there was one where she was talking about she got like stabbed and hospitalized.
Yeah.
And she was talking about like forgiving the person that did it and saying like, oh, I think it's not you, it's the you were born into like a unprivileged situation that led you to this point. And I was like,
it,
oh,
how
that's
did
so
you
deep.
get here?
I think so.
I can't remember.
I want to say it's that.
It was deep.
I can't remember, but yeah, that was like, because like I said, I've not followed her religiously, but I've listened to a lot of her music. That's a story I'd never heard of before. I assume it's most people that are more into her than I am will have known about it. But yeah, that was like finding out about it from her and hearing her take on it, and obviously like having such a grown up sounds like the wrong way to do it, but like such a mature view of something that's such a like systemic problem and how it's a direct effect on her was just the perfect way to showcase that problem.
I've heard so many like rap tracks previously where the outcome of a similar situation, if a rapper's been shot or whatever, they're just like, fuck you, if I see you, you're gonna be dead. And that shit can get hype, but this is just like a level of self-awareness and, like you said, maturity that is rare within the genre.
Yeah, it's like Jack said, it's that like expression, it's that letting you in, it's like it's telling that story, it's saying something. And I think that
it's like The Wire. It's like The Wire. It's like, okay, here are all the crazy pieces, here are all the people doing this fucked up shit. Now what got them here?
The Wire, the TV show.
Yeah, the show. Yeah. Like that song's like it's like I want the everything has a reason for why it's happened. Let's explore the reason. That stuff I love.
Is there anything else you guys are desperate to get into before we start looking at our top track choices?
I might throw a spanner in the works and just sort of go, I think the only thing that lets this album down is it calls back a lot, but it doesn't really innovate a lot. What do you guys think? Like, this doesn't sound like a very modern album. Like at the same time, I was listening to this. I was listening to The Melodic Blue by Baby Kim, and that's so modern. You've got trap, you've got trap beats, you've got all kinds of like modern new flows. Whereas this is sort of grounded hip hop, classic. There's nothing really that challenges your ears here because this is, what it does well, but it's not doing anything new. What do you guys think? Like,
I think that there was like enough diversity that it didn't affect me while I was listening to it, but I also know that I'm more of a fan of this type of hip hop than I am of the modern like drill trap type hip hop. So it wouldn't have immediately jumped to my mind anyway, because that's not something that I'm going searching for.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I also disagree. My thing was kind of like, am I hearing any music that's or hip hop that's doing this sound right now? No, very rare. Obviously, I can call back to other things that did it in the past. Like this album gave me a lot of like Late Registration vibes. With the production, but like I was like, is there much music in this genre doing this? No, and at the same time, you could ask that and say, oh, does it sound dated then? And I didn't think it sounded dated, so I thought it did really well by like drawing on lots of like older sounds, but still keeping it up to date. Even when it comes down to the things like there was a few tracks that seemed like sample based, but I think it was the samples were like recorded for this album and then mixed in a way to make them sound like a old school sample. I think.
You mean like some of the vocal samples?
What was it? I'm trying to think of a track. Two Worlds Apart, I think. I Love You, I Hate You, because there was that it was the dude who's like, I love you, I hate you. There was just that sample that was chopped up, but I think that was like recorded specifically for this album and then chopped up to have the sound of like a 70s sample, which I thought was really I might be talking bullshit on that, but I just looking through the credits, I think that was the case.
I would have liked some more if I was looking to make this like a perfect album, I would probably side with Dennis and like you could go super high concept with it and have something that, as a body of work, progresses along with starting from this sort of like soul sample stuff into the more heavily produced orchestral stuff into the more modern stuff later on. And you could like go down that path, definitely. And I would like to see that, but I didn't personally notice it missing when I was listening to it. But now that you've highlighted it and I think about it, it is something that wasn't there. Yeah,
that's exactly my opinion. Like that, it's a near perfect album, and I'm literally just like splitting hairs to like what would it take to make this like perfect?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying as well. I guess before we move on, the only thing I would say, and again, I'd be interested in your takes, is just kind of the interludes. I like the fact that they tied everything together and they were interesting, but I don't know if they have much replayability. And some did kind of wear on me upon re-listens. But I like that they were there for, again, holding up the album as an album and not just a series of tracks.
The times that I listened to it as a whole body of work, I appreciated them. After a few listens, I was definitely skipping them in my random like shuffle plays.
Yeah.
But I think that's always the case with like spoken word interludes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Unless it's a like candid recorded moment of something hype happening or like some argument or something, you know, where you might listen to it for the joke factor of it. If it's like something serious, you'll always end up being like, I just want to hear the tracks.
Yeah, it's the equivalent to like an album littered with skits, you know, unless you're Good Kid, Mad City or Stankonia. Yeah, no. There's only a few exceptions where I'm like, I'm going to listen to every skit.
Okay, Dennis, then, what were your top 3 choices?
My number 1 was Misunderstood, just because I loved the composition. I loved how, like as I said, how it felt like there was like a tension there, and it sort of really matched like the subject matter. I'm not sure if that was a conscious decision or not, but the way it came out, I thought it was a standout on the album. And the other tracks that I chose are tracks that were a little bit different as well. So number 2 was Point and Kill, which had the sort of Afro beat type beat.
Yeah.
And number 3 was Protect My Energy, which was sort of the 80s sounding thing. I'm a huge sort of that 80s synth pop sound. Love it.
Did you guys see her Tiny Desk that came out like a week or 2 ago? Tiny Desk performance.
Was that the Lonely Desk one?
I don't know if they called it that, but it was literally like a week or so ago. It's like sick, and it has it had the dude from Point and Kill. They played that song live, and it was really good, really good. Kind of, how do you fucking say his name? Obongiaya?
No idea. I'm not going to try it. So there's that was all 3 of yours, wasn't it, Dennis?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, Hadi, what were your choices?
Give me Introvert, the opening track. Just the incredible like grandness of the orchestral production. I loved it. There were tempo changes, instrumental breaks. It was just so epic and such like a great way to start the album. My second was I Love You, I Hate You. I really like the kind of personal aspect of her, like talking to her dad on this track. And again, like the maturity of like kind of mixed feelings, I guess the title kind of gives it away, but it's kind of not like just one mentality. It's like, I recognize all these good things and I recognize all these bad things. And there's no like perfect answer to how I feel. And then my favorite track, this has to be track of the album, Standing Ovation. Like this track just summarized for me everything that made this track, the album, great. Like I said, just the lush production, tempo changes. She was switching up her flows all the time. It was intense, man. That might be one of my like tracks of the year, actually.
That track sounded like a victory lap to me.
Yeah. Oh, she fucking killed. She fucking killed it. Yeah, like when we do an end of year summary, like thing, that track's going to be on my list somewhere.
Fair enough. I've got a bit of a. I don't know why I've put that one in my list. A bit of a. Trying to type with my keyboard sideways as well. There you go. A bit of a mix. So, Protect My Energy is on mine as well. That was one where, like, when I was listening to my album full listens, it slightly slipped through the cracks. But when I started doing my shuffle ones, and it came on, I was always ready for it to start. Like, yeah, the like funky 80s influence stuff really stood out amongst the rest of the more like hip hop and classic golden age hip hop sort of stuff they're doing there. Introvert
Was that her singing? Do you know?
It's not credited on the track anyway. It doesn't have like a featuring.
But I can't hear it off the top of my head right now, so I couldn't tell you. There's no one. Awesome. There's no one credited. But yeah, I was loving that. Introvert as well. Yeah, for all the reasons that we've spoken about it before. Although I will say, the orchestral stuff. By the time I'd gone through the whole album multiple times, I was a bigger fan of the subtler orchestral things than I was of the like grand, huge stuff. I think that for Introvert, it worked really well, especially as the album opener, and that it goes from that orchestral stuff into a beat that uses elements of that. I think that worked really well. But as a theme that kept coming back, I would have preferred a more like subtle approach to using that orchestration. But it wasn't a big problem, but it was just like a preference. But after a few listens, and then Woman as well, yeah. Like, I think it was nice to have a switch up in style again. It was nice to have that had really nice orchestration in it. It wasn't in your face, but it was like consistent element of it. Cleo Soul killed the feature, and the way the lyrics are delivered, it was giving you these elements to focus on and telling you these stories using metaphors, using all the like lyrical skill, and then the flow matched with it perfectly as well. So yeah, that was a really like tour de force song for me.
On Introvert, what did you think of the tempo changes? Because it just
that shit.
Yeah,
I was there for it. Yeah,
like again, that's like, for me, that's the perfect example of like that producer rapper like locked in. And again, it comes back to what I'm saying. It's not a beat maker. They've crafted, this work together.
Yeah. I still don't think calling someone a beat maker is like talking down on it at all.
No, it's not. And I love beat makers. I'm just saying, again, it's like what you said, Dennis.
But like, why does that mean he's not a beat maker? He's just made a beat with tempo switches in it.
No, as in not just a beat maker.
But what's just a beat maker?
Like to me, the concept of a beat maker is like, you'll connect with a rapper, play him a bunch of beats, and then they'll be like, yeah, I'll take that one. And then they buy the beat, and it's just a pre-made thing. Like, a producer has a hand in like the crafting of the music, and will work with the rapper or the artist, whoever, and then might adjust things to like fit them. That's my definition.
So it's less like mass produced. It's less like an off the shelf part that you can just slot in. Exactly.
It's like a bespoke product, as opposed to an off the shelf product that might be great, but it's a generic. That would be my analogy. And like I said, both have different like purposes and work well. But I think it's the next level when you have a producer rapper combo and they've worked together through the entire album creation process. Like, and to be honest, same thing if you're a rapper and a producer, like a Kanye, you've got the perfect situation then, or like a Big Crit.
At the same time, I think we are playing word games here. To be honest with you,
it's definitely splitting hairs because we can carry on off stream because we're getting sidetracked. So yeah, cool. Time for scores. What have you guys given it? Let's go. Go Dennis first.
I'm gonna go fire. It's not a mind blown. It is a perfect album, near perfect album. It is a near perfect album. I would have just liked a bit more innovation. I would have just liked for my general thoughts are that it could have pushed the envelope just a little bit more. And if it did, then it would be a perfect album. But it is a high fire for me.
Okay. Haddy, what are you saying?
The amount of generic shit that's out there, Dennis, and you're talking this rubbish. Yeah, no, this for me is a mind blown.
What?
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
What?
I'm sorry.
There's
But
no way.
hang
There's
on.
no way.
There's no way.
Listen to me. Like, mind blown ain't. It doesn't have to be perfect.
This
you
blew,
know,
but
whichever.
this blew your mind.
Yeah. Look, like I said, you know my thoughts on the production. Next level. Okay, she's a versatile, fucking top tier lyricist. You know, features killed it. I love the thematic elements. I didn't dislike a song. You know, I had my qualms with the interludes, but that's it's shit that you don't necessarily going to come back to for like a musical enjoyment. But all of the actual songs, I enjoyed. So yeah, she didn't miss.
Okay. All right. I'm giving this a fire. I think it is high fire, like Dennis says. But yeah, it's like Dennis is saying, it's a very, very good British hip hop album, but it doesn't go beyond being a very, very good British hip hop album. And I don't think like.
What? So you're saying British have British music has a handicap where it can't go to the next level. That's what you were kind of implicating.
No. I think it's
I'm just saying it's a very, very good album, and that's the genre that it's in.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
I misinterpreted that. Out of curiosity, do you guys prefer Grey Area?
I think personally, I think so, because wasn't Grey Area like all it was live instrumentation, I think. Which is like I thought it was different.
Love some live instrumentation.
But that's different.
I think I prefer
right?
this. Well, in fact, no, I've not listened to Grey Area in a while.
This is all live instrumentation, aside from the one or two like.
You got some 808s dropping in on the Protect My Energy.
How can you get more? How can you get more live than fucking bare strings, dude?
All right, you got a point. Maybe I need to look into the actual album production a little bit more. But to me, Grey Area sounded like, oh, we just got a band in, and the band just created the instrumental to go underneath. Whereas this sounds more like, yes, we got a band in, but then we got that all in our music production software, and then we put other effects and all sorts on top of it. So it's been fucked with a little bit more, whereas Grey Area to me sounds a little bit more sort of more like that punk stripped down sort of
I can understand that take, because there's Van Halen albums where like they've been overproduced, and that's definitely like there's nothing technically wrong with the music being played, and it's like still enjoyable, but it's an edge to your listening. Yeah, that wasn't something I got, but I can see like where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of just like a band going in and just recording it live and just playing that rather than fucking with it and then taking out bits and pieces here and there.
Yeah, I like the layers, man. I like shit to be like, that faders all the way up.
To be fair,
as much as you can do.
There are a lot of layers in throughout the album. To be honest, so I can see why you like it.
For me, that gives the replayability in a lot of situations.
I'll give you that.
If you agree with what we've said, let us know down below. If you're absolutely mental and you want this to go mind blown as well, drop us a comment, because Hadi will love it.
You said it's high fire. How can it be mental to just bump up like half a tier?
This is my turn to be stirring with my little wooden spoon, throwing out my fishing rod, reeling you in. If you liked what we're saying, like to review, give us a like, give us a subscribe to hear what we're doing next week. I actually don't know what we're doing next week, but we're going to have a couple of videos coming up that are a bit of a twist on the topic discussion type format that we were doing before. So watch out for them in the next few weeks. And other than that, we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Ecstatic, as you can probably tell from my face.
I need a house remix of it.
I wrote only one note for that song, and it was fuck Polo G.
I will come over to your house and beat you up. I feel like Dennis is going to throw some spanners in the works.
People were triggered.
What's wrong with you?
Could I put this in Mind Blown?